On today's podcast, I've got 𝙁𝙧𝙚, a.k.a. Fergie, and we talk about a bunch of cool stuff. He's a really interesting guy. Talk about how abandonment was instilled in him at a very early age, his choice to join the Navy right after high school, his fall from being a real estate or a self-described real estate vulture to squatting with his rescue dog in a house that he was listing, why Scott believes that you need to stay curious and to keep your ask in gear. And finally, his mission, which is to not have anyone feel like they have no one. Enjoy. Hey, Fergie. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Malatesta, what's up, my friend? Thank you so much for having me, brother.
How you doing? Thanks for joining me today.
I'm busy and blessed, man. Blessed and highly favored.
Cool. So, folks, let me tell you a little bit. Fergie, whose real name is L. Scott Ferguson. So you can get as excited as I am about having him on today. So Scott is a lifestyle optimation artist, and I'd say transformation artist too, if you don't mind me adding that in there, Scott. And the host of the Time to Shine Today podcast. His mission is to not have anyone feel like they have no one. That's amazing. As the host of the Time to Shine podcast, which, by the way, I was on episode 335, so it was a pleasure.
Sure.
Thank you so much for having on. Scott shares knowledge to help individuals level up business and personal life. Scott is a veteran of the United States Navy with multiple deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and other places that we'll talk about in the early to mid-90s. Scott loves to give, live intentionally. He loves the beach, fitness, yoga, rescuing fur babies, which I think are dogs, and volunteering. He's also a real estate expert, I believe a martial artist. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, sir. Okay. A speaker, a coach, a micro influencer. I love how he calls himself. Most people just call themselves influencers. I love the micro in front of it. It makes you think like, wait, what does that mean? And a super connector. And he's connected me to multiple people after I had first met him. So Scott, thanks so much for being on the show. I start every podcast with the same simple question, and that is, how did it happen for you?
Awesome. Mike, again, thank you so much for having me on. And it's just a blessing. And we rocked the mic back in like just only a few episodes ago, man. So
yeah, not
I really
too long ago.
Appreciate the really quick turnaround. And it has so much cred that I have to give to you. We talked off camera or off mic or whatnot, and about how I approach coaching after 9 years of experience, how I approach it a little bit differently after just a few weeks ago when we had our interview. So thank you again for that. I want to put it out there. You know, Mike, if you're listening, squad, Mike said, you know, we all know what we want, but we don't know how to talk ourselves into it. And if you're in a situation like that, get yourself a coach like Mike. And again, just thank you for that, man. But
my pleasure.
When we get to the how did it happen, I'm going to put this in kind of a really quick nutshell, but it goes back to 1972 when I was born. And I was born in the Philippine Islands. My father was an American GI. My mother, biological mother, was a lady that lived in the Philippines, and they kind of met and made me. Yeah, but he was just kind of a stop through, if you will. He was already going off to Vietnam, and you know, so he just kind of left my biological mother with me. But at the time, mixed breed males, especially bastard children, were very frowned upon. I'm 6'1", I'm 260, I'm pretty well put together. And if you had, you know, an average American man at 190, you had tens of thousands of these bastard males running around. They were afraid at the time that we would take over their country, even physically, because Filipinos are, you know, biologically, they're physiologically, they're not big people. So they were afraid of that. And the Philippines is, you know, kind of controlled by Spain, the Spaniard. So my mother kind of put me up for adoption, and I had an Air Force couple that wanted to adopt me, and they started the process, brought me back to the United States. But then the woman who's going to adopt me, her father dies. She goes schizophrenic, and they couldn't raise me, so they put me in an orphanage. So from the orphanage, I was adopted a little bit later in life. by a family in Detroit, Michigan, who I call my mother and father. They adopted me. My father, who's my best friend in the world, he doesn't mind me saying this, he was an alcoholic from Vietnam, very bad. He couldn't raise me, so I was passed around from family to family. So early in life, abandonment was instilled. It was the normalcy for me. So moving through life, I always had a chip on my shoulder, never felt as I fit in. Victim, victim, victim. Poor me, poor Scott, poor Fergie. That's just how I kind of rolled with life. So I always tried to excel at sports, not so much academia, but sports, popularity, whatever I could do. And so when I was good at a sport, some universities were interested, but they didn't like my 1.8 grade point average, right? My father was like, listen, man, you can't live, because I did end up circling back and live with my father from 8th grade until I graduated high school. And he's like, you can't live with me. So I ended up joining the military, where I found a family, people that were there that had my six or my back. At all times, we went through a lot of stuff together, did a lot of deeds together that I felt like I had someone. But also that term came to an end as well. And I got out of the military instead of being a career man in the military, got out and got right into personal training and in real estate. And so I ended up doing very well in both. I dropped the personal training and really kept doing real estate, really printed money, but from a point of being a vulture. I preyed on other people's misfortunes. Hey, you're losing your house, I can help you. I didn't help with them at all, except for buy the house on the cheap. And I built my net worth up very substantially. And then this whole thing, I don't know if you remember it or not, but in 2009, this whole thing hit with a crash, and I lost absolutely everything. And I literally was squatting in a listing that I had where the people had moved to Florida, and I was still in Michigan, and I lived in their house while they were gone, and I had really nothing. So my surf and turf consisted of tuna and Vienna sausages, like legitly, right? And I just would go to the library for something to do because I couldn't afford anything. The gentleman said, hey, I think you should read this. I'm getting a vibe off you. And he handed me the book by Andy Andrews called The Traveler's Gift. And The Traveler's Gift is a dude that is lost his job, lost his kids dying. He's like, I'm just going to end it. So he runs his car into a tree, and he wakes up in 1945 on the floor of Give Him Hell Harry Truman's office the day before we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he talked about responsibility. And responsibility is the ability to respond. And then he went through time and talked to King Solomon for wisdom, Anne Frank for happiness, Abraham Lincoln for making decisions. Greatest book I ever read, changed everything. And I figured that, hey, this person in the library brought me along. He made me feel like I had somebody. And so I started Time to Shine Today in 2010, where we don't want to have anyone to feel like they have no one, period. So I went through a lot of stages of my life and got to the point now where I'm a micro influencer, meaning I do have 160,000 subscribers to my Time to Shine Today email list. So that's micro compared to bigger people out there, but I'm very intimate with those people, help them out. I answer all emails, answer all questions, and help them level up their life. The kicker to this on the back end, because I'm almost done here, Mike, is that I have a twin sister that my mom kept that I got to reunite with in 2003 when I was 31. And she happened to be a real estate broker, just like I was. So it was kind of a real circle around. So that's how it happened with me, and how we don't want to have anyone to feel like they have no one. I don't care if you're contemplating in your life, like my little brother did, unfortunately. I have counselors ready. I have people that come to me for coaching, and I've interviewed people like you that I can refer for coaching for people if I'm not the right horse for the course for them. So I just want and will be that one-stop shop, for lack of a better term, to have people have somebody in their life that can help them level up.
So Scott, do you trace this mission of, not to have anyone feel like they have no one to that book, or is it something else that you trace it to?
I trace it back to the abandonment that I felt as a kid. 100%, because I felt like I had known a lot of the times. Again, my father and I we're best friends. We talked 3-4 times a week. He got clean in 1984, hasn't had a drink since then. So he's coming up on big 40 years. But it's just like he did what was best for me at the time, but I still didn't feel like I had anybody really to lean on, because I never felt at home pretty much ever in my life until the military. So yeah, I really trace it back to the younger years. Just the person that handed me that book changed my shift in thinking, or like someone wrote this awesome book, if you're watching, Owner Shift, you know, a shift
Oh,
in
yeah. Heard of
thinking.
that.
Yeah. And how I really worked. And it's funny, you and I spoke about shifting and pivoting, because everyone wants to talk about
Yeah.
pivoting now, where pivoting is you're kind of staying in one place, where shifting, you can make it. And that's another thing I learned from you, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you. So, thanks for promoting my book on my own podcast too. That was really nice.
I love it.
If you're watching on YouTube or wherever, Scott, I want to make sure I don't miss anything here.
Yeah.
So you laid down a lot there, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure I don't miss the family dynamic. So
Mhm.
when you say your dad, you know, who got clean in 1984, that's your real dad, or this is your, because you
Adoptive
said the
father.
people who adopted you
Yeah.
caught. Okay. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Sure.
And then I guess I want to, so these folks who were in the Air Force,
Mhm.
they picked you up from the Philippines. They
Mhm.
brought you to where in the US?
California. Well, he was still
California.
stationed there, and her father had gotten sick, so they got me a temporary passport, which I still have to this day. This little passport thing with me as a baby on in the picture, and you know, they were going to finish up the adoption process, make me an American citizen, and her father got sick, so we ended up coming back to California to
Yeah.
be with them. And we were going to go back because, you know, the father who was going to adopt me was stationed in, you know, out of the Philippine Islands. Now, my biological father, which is kind of, like I said, just kind of like a run through. He just hooked up with my biological mother. And
Yeah.
there's a
Okay.
kicker to that too. I just found
But
out about a month and a half ago that he died in 2019. I found out who he was. This whole spitting in a tube thing has changed my life dramatically as well, with meeting half siblings, you know, all across the United States, and family members and stuff like that. Found out where I got my height from, you know, being Dutch, believe it or not. You know, I get my dark skin from being a Filipino, half Filipino, but like my whole family is from like Western Pennsylvania, like Dutch area.
So
It's a lot to unpack with me, dude. It's a ton. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, when you said you had discovered your sister, I thought,
Mhm.
you know, you would have taken that naturally, right? Could you discover your biological father as well? It sounds like you actually did go down that road.
We
But
never knew him, you know. So it was like my biological mother, who is my mom, kept, and she gave me up so that Spain wouldn't take me back to their country, right? And in 2003, I hired her. I got a little mole on the back of my leg, so I hired a really good friend of mine who's an awesome private investigator, and he found Jovi, who is my twin sister. He's like, dude, are you sitting down? I'm like, no, why? He's like, sit down. He goes, you have a twin. I'm like, what? So ended up meeting her, and the whole Filipino family. My biological mother ended up meeting another GI that brought the family back to New Jersey. So they're all up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, in Filipino town.
Okay. So your mom has had your sister,
Jovi. Yep.
Jovi, and then she remarried or whatever. She had another. She got married. Hey everyone, if you like what I'm doing with this podcast and want to participate in more of the things I'm thinking about and exploring, subscribe to my newsletter today. It's super simple. Just go to mikemalatesta.com right now, put in your email, and you will get the very next issue. It's short, thoughtful, and designed to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you. And had this other family that you're connected to, obviously. Okay.
But she also had 6 kids before us. So I have like brothers that are 70, you know. It's like, because she's quite a bit older when she got pregnant with me and Jovi. So I got to meet them as well. It was a really fun reunion. I'm not super tight with them, but you know, holiday cards and birthday texts and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
And how about your mom?
She passed away in 1998. I never got a chance to meet her. My auntie, or my sister, Susan, she told me that she always had a secret, but she never told anybody. So I guess I was that one. We just came to the conclusion that I was that secret.
So you go to California with this temporary passport. They decide that they can't keep you. They put you, so you get put in an orphanage in California. And then this couple from Michigan finds you,
right. And this is
and
the
connects with you and adopts you.
Yes, sir. And this is the 1970s, and it wasn't really in for, I'll say that in air quotes, it wasn't in for a really white family to adopt a dark skin color kid. So for my family to do that, it was pretty remarkable. We went through quite a journey. I mean, after they adopted me, they got divorced a year and a half later. So it was, again, I was just kind of passed around. My mom unfortunately passed in 2019. Me and her were like best friends as well. She kind of disappeared from my life until I was about 14. And, so we never had that mother-son relationship, but we were like really good friends, but I respected her knowledge, if you will, if that makes sense.
Wow. You went through a little bit of stuff as a kid.
Yeah, man. It's funny. It's like
man.
People got a hold of my story, and like I had big talk shows back in the 90s that wanted me to come on, Sally Jesse Raphael, Montel Williams, Ricky Lake. But I just wasn't ready to really talk about it too much until I kind of went through what I did in the late 2000s, 2009, 2010. I was like, man, this is a story. If I can find people and feel like I have somebody, I want everybody that I know to have a relationship with me. And it doesn't have to be best friends, but to have a relationship with me that if they need something, I can provide it.
And this thing you were talking about, this sort of large bastard thing about in the Philippines, right? So you never actually experienced that, right? But your biological mom was thinking.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned something about Spain and going back to Spain. I just want to make sure I understand that whole sort of turn of events there.
When I was born, they would know that I was a mixed breed bastard child. Father's not around. So, at the time, the government was literally taking the children, and they weren't treating them like slaves or anything. They just put them with families in Spain. But no one really knows what happened to those kids, that were taken to Spain, the boys. So my biological mother, we'll call her Connie. Her name is Conchita. But Connie was, she had my back. She's like, I'm not going to have this on my conscience. I'm going to put him with somebody that I know that will take care of him.
Got it. So then you get to Michigan with your mom and dad, who you refer to as your mom and dad, and they get divorced a year and a half later. You're raised by your dad, I guess, because your mom.
Yeah.
At least till you were 14.
Well, I was passed around because my father was an alcoholic from my adoptive father was an alcoholic. So I got passed around from family to family. Ended up spending about 6 years with an uncle who's very militant, very much a disciplinarian, believed in the belt. And I don't have any ill will towards them. I get along with them. I call them my mom and dad also. It gets very confusing, my story, but I call them my mom and dad also. My dad, who adopted me, understands why I call them my mom and dad as well, because they raised me for 6 years. But my mom that adopted me, she bailed until I was 14, just left after they divorced. So my father that adopted me and my uncle, his brother, they ended up making sure I got my citizenship. So I am a legal citizen. I had to go raise my right hand in the courthouse in Detroit, Michigan when I was like 9 years old. So I am an immigrant that, my family did it the right way and got my papers right. And I'm proud to be an American.
And that I'm not even going to go down the road of how you feel about the immigration issue today, because when you said did it the right way, it makes me think, okay, but or maybe I will later. I don't know. But right now I just want to focus a little bit on this sports thing. You mentioned that you were good at sports, and was it, I mean, you built like a football player, or
never played it down.
Never played it down. Okay. And, so open it up. What do you do? What were you doing?
I wrestled since I was a very young, grappling, which led into jiu-jitsu later in life. So they're both grappling styles. Was pretty good at wrestling and pretty good at baseball as well. So I ended up, playing some high-level ball when I was a kid. And when I went in the Navy, I kind of played a few innings for the all-Navy team, and I've always been active, man, and always kept myself relatively good shape until I had some depressive times in my life where I really got fat. But it's been a great journey where, especially with grappling, because you're so, for lack of a better term, intimate with the person that you're kind of rolling around on the
Yes.
ground with, but you build families out of that. So I have families that stem back to 5 years old, guys that I wrestled 1977, and you see them through the years, and you see us all still kind of staying within the grappling world, and it's a really cool family to have later in life.
And you mentioned earlier that you found your family in the Navy. So you kind of explained how you ended up there, but well, you didn't explain why Navy. So I'm always curious, why Navy?
You know what, man? I wanted to see a lot of the world. I wanted to go back to the Philippines, and everyone's like, listen, man, if you sail out of the West Coast of the Navy, or the recruiter's like, listen, if we get you stationed on the West Coast, then we can, you can go back to the Philippines for free, because all the ships stop in, Subic Bay all the time in the Philippines. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do it. And so I signed up with the Navy. I graduated June 10th of 1990, and I was in boot camp June 25th. And just really never looked back. And I ended up getting stationed in Coronado, special ops base in California, Southern California, there by San Diego. And just built it's just a family. We went downrange quite a bit because what I did, which I don't really want to get into that too much, but we went downrange quite a bit, and was able to have friends that have your back, not so much physically but also mentally, for life. We're always there for each other.
And for those people who don't know what downrange means, Scott, what is it?
Like a deployment or a tour, going overseas, and maybe a little bit more aggressive than what most people that might serve in the military do. We had to go in, we had jobs to do that were pretty critical, and we did them.
Okay. So special ops of some sort.
Yeah, we'll say that. Sure. Again, I don't really want to go too much into what I did, but yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. You found a family there. What made you want to stop and move on?
I hated being told what to do all the time. Again, I was raised by a very militant uncle.
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't want to be told what to do, which to me, honestly, Mike, if there's any regret, which I don't regret anything really, but if there's something I had to do over, I would have stayed in 20 and it would have been done by the time I was 38, and then be able to build a business. You're still young at 38, but when you're 18, 38 feels old, right?
Yeah,
now
sure.
Looking back in retrospect, that's the only thing I probably would have changed.
Really, you would have stayed, and on reflection, you would have stayed for 20 years.
Sure. Yeah, I would have did that, but without not doing it, and a lot of people have their thoughts on Facebook, but Facebook to me is fantastic, because it brought to, reunited a lot of the people that I served with that I probably never would have connected with after we said our goodbyes. I mean, I had a core group of friends, but now, every February, 20 veterans come to South Florida where I live now. So there's a huge golf tournament called the Honda Classic, and they have a veterans tent, very appreciative veterans down here. And they all come and visit, people that I served with. Like last year, the only year we didn't have a minimum of 20 people come in was COVID year. Other than that, it was, we have, even this past year, we had 36 people. I also turned 50 during the tournament, so even more people came in, and we had a blast. It was really, really good time, and be able to connect and, share some stories and hang out in the veterans tent with people that served in Nam, or, even World War II old, 104, 105-year-old people in Korean War. And so it's again, it's a family that, are there for you. I can pick up the phone and talk to anybody if I'm having an episode.
And when that sounds phenomenal, by the way. I'm glad that that's happening. The not like being told what to do. Can you, because I'm like that too. A lot of us are like that, but I was never in the military.
Right.
So give me a feel for like what you didn't like being told what to do. Was it the normal stuff? Was it just like the regular, stuff, or was it something it wasn't, it wasn't that you didn't like being told, hey, this is what to do, or was
Right.
it? I mean,
it was the structure I loved, but it was they owned me, you know. And again, I valued freedom a lot because of subconsciously, I didn't know this at the time, like, but subconsciously I valued freedom so much. It's like, oh my gosh, I had to carry this beeper on me because what I did. And the beeper was the size of like a iPhone 14. You know, it was huge. You know, carrying that beep, you called and you got to where they needed me to be. I didn't like that at the time. I didn't like, you know, I always wear my hair short, so it wasn't like I wanted to have the long hair or anything like that. But it just was like, oh man, it's like I was always ambitious when I was young, and I grew up as the poor side of the tracks in Plymouth, Michigan, which is really not poor. It's actually very affluent compared to other parts, say in Detroit or whatnot. But I had friends that families were entrepreneurs, and I would see that. I'm like, what's that about? You know, and I always see them freedom, see them on the golf course in the middle of the day, you know, and I was, you know, working at a golf course one summer and just like, wow, how does that happen? And then, you know, having people in the military that were side hustling, meaning they would work the military, but they'd also have jobs at like Gold's Gym or delivering pizzas or whatnot. So I started seeing that and seeing that, hey, there's more to that out here that I can really attain and go after. My father, I love him, but he worked on the line at General Motors for 30 years, and he wasn't a very ambitious person at all. And so I'd never had that mindset of financial mindset at all. You know, if I got money, I blew through it. And when I did get a lot of money, I was very arrogant, very, very arrogant.
Okay. So I want to get into that, but I want to ask you first, when you decided you were going to leave the Navy, describe yourself. Like, how do you remember yourself as, like, who were you when you made that decision?
24 years old, 23, 24 years old. It's like, if I can make it through what I made it through, I can make it through anything. You know, my father, because of Vietnam, made sure that I had the help mentally. You know, upon discharge, he made sure I got with the right people for that. But it was a time of, I'm going to be free. I can go out and do whatever I want. And I did it. And I became my version of successful from doing it because I didn't believe anybody could outwork me or out-network me. So I got that work ethic and parlayed that into a civilian life. And with the freedom that I had, I really made more than the best of whatever situation that I was in. Now, I know I said, oh, yeah, I'd do 20 years, but it would be more about staying with the family than really succeeding in life monetarily. Because when you're in the military, you're serving a nation. You're always consistently serving. When I got out of the military, I felt so much freedom that I didn't feel like I had to serve anybody. I just got to get mine. And that's what my downfall was. So the freedom, yeah, it was there, but I did it all from a vulture perspective.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You came back to Detroit, the Detroit area after. Okay. And you started, I mean, you talked about the real estate. Is that what you started in right away, or what was your first thing you did when you came back?
I was, again, I remember I was talking about side hustling when I was in the military. I got my personal trainer certification. So I was training people at Gold's Gym in San Diego.
Oh, that's right.
And then I came back to Michigan and I started training people at a studio. I was basically, you went in and you paid the owner of the studio as just personal training only, paid them a monthly fee. And I had clients, and one of the clients is Gary Shapiro, who ended up being a very important mentor in my life. And I was training him. He's like, so what do you see yourself? Do you see yourself personal training? Because I love doing it, but I didn't love being there every single day at someone's beck and call. And I just told, man, I see all these. Well, at the time I was also bouncing at a bar at night a little bit. And at the time I was going home and seeing these infomercials by Carlton Sheets that said, no money down, buy real estate. Oh, this can be done. Well, I told Gary that, and Gary was a kind of a real estate kingpin in the area. He's like, that's not how it works. Once you go find a property, I'll buy it and I'll teach you real estate investing. And that's how it started with him. And it was kind of like the scene from Wall Street where Charlie Sheen walks into Michael Douglas and he hands him a deal. He's like, that's a dog with fleas. That's another dog with fleas. It's kind of that situation. But I found him that one property and we bought that in 1999. Yeah, 99. And we still owned it to this day. It was my very first one. It's on Eastern Michigan's campus. We rent it out, keep it rented to college students, and it's fantastic. And I just kept on working it. One time I had over 114, 115 properties. I'm down to about 80 now. That's all overseen. But yeah, the real estate kind of came into play with that and with investing first. And then I became a real estate agent because I loved working with people it's arguably their biggest financial commitment that they're making to that point in their life, buying a house.
Right.
Whether they buy up, after time. So I really learned about following up, following through, following back. I really learned the 3 follows, learned to, stay organized my day, with it. But again, I was doing it from a place of not so much helping, but anything but my bottom line and my wallet.
And so there's an important lesson in there that your personal training with Gary Shapiro, you're connecting with him, you're helping him, you're providing value to him, and then he helps you do something that you sort of were dreaming about, but really didn't have any idea how to get started.
Right. Yeah. And it was great. And I do this, I believe in a plus equals minus lifestyle. And so and I live this every single day. And basically a plus is I find somebody that I'm striving to kind of get to, not be them, but strive to a level. And I work to learn from them. And then and the equals is kind of like you and I, Mike, I know you've sold business for 8 figures and stuff like that, but we can still bounce off of each other, ideas, and learn from each other. And the minus is what Gary did to me. He saw somebody that was asking questions, that was very curious, and he pulled me up. So I live a plus equal minus lifestyle every single day of my life now, with not a day that goes by, because it's in my journal. What did I plus equal minus today? Every single day. Well, 5 days a week. I give myself, I treat my journaling like a workout, where you work out 5 days and take a couple days off. So plus equals minus is very, very critical to my life. And because it was done to me, not just by Gary Shapiro, it was done by Sam Mizoraka, another influential a real estate investor that taught me about mobile home park investing. I've had multiple coaches that have came through my life and really instilled in me mentoring others. I believe that the more you mentor, the more immortal you become, right? You become remembered, and you just kind of keeping, it going, and just keep paying it forward, if you will. So
do you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so tell me.
No, you're fine.
But do you have pluses for today?
Yeah, absolutely.
You could share with us?
Yeah, the plus today is, I'm blessed. There's somebody that.
Hey everybody, just a quick pause here to let you know how much I appreciate that you've made time for my podcast. If you're not already a subscriber, please become one today. Leave a review and tell a friend. Now, let's get back to the show.
That I've been really, really wanting to meet, and I'm blessed to be a member at Mar-a-Lago, and whatever your affiliation with Trump is or whatever, but it's his winter White House. And I get to meet him, this afternoon for a bite to eat. And I get to, I'm very curious. I believe curiosity is the biggest power in the world, period. Nothing's invented without it. Bezos didn't do Amazon. Zuckerberg didn't do Facebook. Everybody was curious. And so I'm just a very curious mofo, man. And so I get to do that with regards to my plus. The equals, I'm doing it right now, with you. And then the minus, I do have a gentleman who's young. He's 23. He reached out to me to do a mock interview with him because he knows about my coaching programs. And he's getting his first, quote unquote, real job. So I'm going to put him through a mock interview today.
Oh,
a very,
nice.
Very brutal one.
Very brutal mock interview.
Elliot, if you're listening, well, this will already be out out before you do it, but you're in for one, buddy.
Okay,
Good.
he's in for some pain.
He's in for
Little
some things, buddy.
little mental jujitsu this afternoon for you, pal.
That's right.
So,
Yep.
you know, it's funny you mentioned the curiosity, because I agree with you. I just feel like, and it's so sad, I think, because there's a lot of people who they either wash the curiosity out of themselves, or it's washed out of them by people over time. Like what could have happened to you, the way you grew up, right? Like your curiosity could have been completely gone because abandonment was like the thing you were dealing with every day. And a lot of times when you're dealing with something like that, you don't really have the you don't have the currency to spend
Right.
on curiosity.
True.
Yeah.
The best thing about curiosity is it's free. You know, and I just believe that, and you can have it. You just need to. I have clients that I coach that we really flex the hustle muscle that they have, but also get their curiosity on full tilt. You know, I mean, want them to be curious all the time, and it just bleeds through for me because I'm not a consultant. I'm a coach, so I know that I can get people there by the questions that I ask. And I see a lot of, it's fun, Mike, when I get to see a lot of myself in the people that I'm coaching, because coaching becomes super easy because I'm just paying forward what somebody did to me, you know, with Coaches for Me.
So who was the coach or the mentor or the Gary who in 2009 extended that hand to you, or that idea or whatever, that got you out of this hole you were in?
My coach at that time was my dog, and his name is Rhodey. He's a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and I rescued him from the Detroit Zoo in 2006. And
From the zoo?
Detroit Zoo, they had an Adopt Your Buddy Day. And,
okay.
Detroit Zoo. So
I
I
was like,
popped
wow,
in there. Yeah, I just got a wild dog. No, Rhodesian.
Yeah, that's
the funny thing about Ridgebacks is that they hunt in hunters of lions. They use Ridgebacks. They're fearless dogs. They used them to confuse lions so they could kill the lion.
Okay.
So, but because he's fearless, he got used as a fluffer for pit bull rings. So they would get that Rhodey to get them fired up so they can go in and hurt each other. So it's really started a vendetta of mine, you know, for no kill shelters as well, and support as many as I can. But Rhodey was the only thing with a heartbeat that, because of how I was mean to people when I had money, I didn't want to reach out to anybody for help. Rhodey was the only living organism on this planet that had a heartbeat that was there for me. I mean, we squatted in that house together, you know, that I told you I listed a house and lived there together. We went through a lot of things together, and I just promised him one thing. I go, we're going to live at the beach, you know, one day, you know. And I learned a ton from Rhodey about loyalty, about being humble, about gratitude. You know, you can learn so much from a dog, you know, and you know, I just believe my pit bull now that I rescued, Stitch, is a reincarnation of Rhodey. And the same lessons are being learned every day. So I didn't have a coach. One, I couldn't afford it. And two, you know, I was, you know, Rhodey was a Ridgeback and he needed to walk a lot. So I did a lot of movement. So he kept me moving even during times. And then going to the library to research a few things, and meeting the gentleman that handed me the book. That book changed everything for me.
Yeah.
With Andy. So, yeah.
And you mentioned Vulture a couple of times. Did I hear you right somewhere say you actually, was the name of your company Vulture Capital?
It was. It was, dude.
That's bold. That's bold, dude.
Yeah, we pray again. I was cocky. I was printing money, man. I, you know, again, prey on other people's misfortunes. I actually had Vulture Capital LLC, which is a subsidiary of City and Suburban Equities Inc., which is my company that is still around to this day. It holds all of my real estate. But I had it under there, and the best feeling in the world was shutting down that company. You know, so it was it was good. And
did you ever think about? Did you ever think about? Sorry to interrupt you, Scott. Did you ever think about, like you said, the 20 years in the Navy you thought about afterwards? Did you ever think about who you would be today if you didn't have that 2009 experience, the Great Recession, and you just continued to print money and continued to get what you wanted, seemingly like you deserved it?
Deserve the money?
Deserved that approach to life
Hmm.
that you
Yeah, absolutely. I needed to be humbled. I'm a God-fearing person. I'm not here to
mhm.
be religious, but I have a relationship with God. And there was, even when I was being that person, I had a relationship with God. And I just feel that there was time to make a change in my life, and my creator made sure that that happened.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I probably would have kept on printing money and living and, blowing through marriages like I did. Um, blowing through people, afraid that they're going to abandon me. So I get rid of them first. And that include friends, you know, um, and stuff like that, and hurting the people that I love the most. So I probably, to answer your question, yeah, I probably would have stayed on the same track, being 2022, rich is sin. But like you said, life well lived is life with options, not obligations,
Right. Oh, look at
and
you pulling up
yeah.
another thing I
Hey
said.
man, it was an amazing interview, Mike, and I learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate it. But yeah, I think that I would be that same douchebag to this day right now.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'm glad that happened to you.
Me too. Me too. It
Yeah.
sucked going through it, but as Robin Sharma says, anything your huge change you're gonna make is gonna be tough at the start, messy in the middle, but glorious at the end, right? So it was a hell of a journey through these past 12 years with it. And I wouldn't change a thing on anything, but that's one thing that there's so many lessons learned in that 12 years, and
Yeah.
building Time to Shine today to where it's at, and being able to help as many people as I'm able to, and then consistently, plus equal minus every single day, and help as many people as I can. It's fuck, man. It's the life that I love living.
Nice. So how'd you get to Florida? What happened?
I got an itch to compete in a bodybuilding competition,
Hmm.
and I was weighing about 290 at the time, just fat. And then I hired a coach, and Shelby Starnes got me down to about 220 in 18 weeks, just shredded. But with that happening, I placed very well in the Mr. Michigan. With that being said, it killed my immune system, killed it. And I got this infection that they had to put me on antibiotics that were like making my bones feel like they were just going to break. And it just, the just feeling terrible. And I just asked the doc, I'm like, could warm weather help this? He's like, yeah, absolutely. But you can't fly because the medications you're on, and, just the air pressure inside might hurt your body. And, I have my best friend from womb to tomb, Tim Nardini. He lives in Wellington, Florida, and his birthday is on December 31st. So every year I'd fly down and see him for his birthday and hang out and get out of the cold. He's like, hey man, I have an in-law suite. Why don't you just come crash here for a few weeks, get you healthy, and see, and get you back to Michigan? Well, I came down, never went back. And, I was training a gentleman named Mark Wacker that runs the Ferguson team in Detroit now to this day.
Hmm.
And he took over, and he kept crushing it. I molded him. And at the time, I thought I was training my competition. I was like, this kid's too good. But God had a different plan, brought me to Florida, and Mark's still running that. So it's a nice little check I get from up north every year from what Mark closes. And just ended up staying and building and continuing to build Time to Shine today, and the real estate business as well.
And Time to Shine today, Fergie, what prompted you to start that? And how'd you get it off the ground, and why?
And it goes back, the name of it goes back to Tim Nardini, my best friend. When we were in the middle, we were actually in the military together. We've known each other since grade school, but we also went in the
Right.
military together. And again, I was talking about everyone's doing side hustling. So we had a car detailing company. He named it Time to Shine. Right. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So as I ramped it up, kind of almost an homage to him, I named it Time to Shine.com, and I lost that because I didn't renew the URL. So I added today to it, which I love it actually, because if you go to timetoshine.com right now, it's a cleaning company in like Colorado, right? But it's a redirect to the cleaning company, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll sell this back to you for 10 grand. They're like, well, I'm not paying that. So I added today to the end of it, and ended up I love it because it flows to me and it keeps you present, because I believe there's so many people have a foot in the future, a foot in the past, and they piss all over the present, right? And if it's time to shine today, it's like You've got to do it today. Today's all that freaking matters, man. You're sitting.
Just a short break here to ask you a question. Have you read my book? It's called Ownership: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, and it's available on Amazon, Audible, and everywhere else. If you're looking for inspiration that will help you unlock your greatness and potential, order or download your very own copy today.
In a car, that rearview mirror is small for a reason, you know, because that's your history. The windshield is huge because you see where you're going, but the car don't drive without today, what you're doing now. So yeah, Time to Shine Today came from that, but it wasn't anywhere near where it is now that I'm blessed to have it now. Back then, I would go to like ClickBank and JVZoo and find these digital products that people were making and start writing blogs around them on a platform called 𝙍𝙬𝙬 and yeah, we has 𝙍𝙬𝙬 and Article Nut and all this stuff. And I'd write them and I would make these little affiliate sales. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. And then people kept on saying, hey, can you research this and write about this? And I started doing that. And that just led into picking up some of those people that asked me to research some stuff to kind of pseudo coach them. What I mean is just like I'd have conversations with them. And then it got into 9 years ago, got into, 2013, got into coaching, one-on-ones. And now I'm blessed to the point where I have companies that's like, I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean right now, but I also have a whole room over here to my left that's full of swag that companies send me to do product reviews on for free. So I get like a $5,000 mountain bike or whatever. So I do the review on it. And then they'll give me a deal for like 24 hours to sell it to my list, so the mountain bike is like it's an 𝘍𝙬𝙬𝙬 mountain bike. It's a beautiful, beautiful mountain bike. I don't know anything about it. I have a mountain bike, but I just do touring on it, but took it to some trails here in South Florida, which have some really nice, trails, and asked a mountain biker there to do a GoPro thing, that. And I was able to sell it for $2,200 for 24 hours, $5,000 bike for $2,200. Made 14 sales and they paid me $495 a sale, almost $500 a sale. So there's a lot of that where I get a lot of really cool things now, protein powders, awesome books, hint, hint, ownership, Mike Altessa, pick it up, people, pick it up. I get really cool stuff. And so I get to, again, live my life with options, and do that and make some money along the way. So it's pretty cool. And then what we're doing with coaching right now with the people that I'm interviewing is, getting them into the Time to Shine Today family, where we want to be kind of like Angie's List in a sense, where, people, we're running marketing every day for coaching. But when they come in, I've got to, if they're not for me, for the people that I'm looking to coach, I can put them with people that can get them to where they are. And I take a little bit of affiliate commission off them as well. So I'm interviewing people for free, except for making a nice small donation to the Suicide Life Prevention Hotline, like you yourself did. And thank you. And I'm able to, touch as many people as I can. It just all goes back to, we don't want anyone to feel like they have no one. You there, Mike? Oops.
Yeah. I think I lost you there for a brief second.
Okay.
So, all over, well, first of all, I love the today on the end of Time to Shine because it gives an immediacy to it. Like,
yes, sir.
Time to Shine today. So there's
biggest blessing ever.
Yeah.
Right.
The level up, you got level up on pretty much everything that you do. What's that about? What's it mean? Why do you have it?
It started out as a joke, man. It was remember Sega Genesis, the little video games that kids had. It wasn't even kids. I was in my 20s. And people were like, Fergie, man, come on, hang out with us. We're gonna level up, play some games. I'm like, you losers level up. I'm going to get a workout in. I'm going to get on the mats with somebody. I'm going to go have some fun, do something, keep moving, and level up. They're like, level up. And so it's just like, you losers level up. And then it just kind of like parlayed into what I call juice meetings with my real estate team. Like, hey guys, we got to level up today. This is it, so it's a consistent, it's like, instead of saying Kaizen, constant improvement, the Japanese word, you just say level up. It's a lifestyle for me. It's a lifestyle for my clients that I'm blessed to coach. It's a lifestyle for my team that I'm blessed to have that helps me, you know, shine in my own way. And so that's really where it came from. It was a joke, you know, about gaming before gaming was even gaming, you know, and it just parlayed that into, you know, a friend of mine said Kaizen one day. And I'm like, what's that? It's constant improvement. I just level up. That's how it was. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's my version of Kaizen.
Oh, okay. All right. I like it. Very organic. Just a response, and you're like, yeah, there's something to that.
Yeah.
I like it. You're working on a book.
am.
Speaking of books, what is it? What's it about?
I have a business parable, and that is, I can't say the title yet, but it's about a real estate broker, a Generation X, Gen X like myself, real estate broker that loses a huge deal in South Florida, and he just wants to quit the business. So he goes into his millennial, you know, broker, and it's like, I'm going to quit. And he's like, well, listen, my dad said if I was ever quit, talk to these 5 people. And basically I get introduced to, you know, a pro skateboarder for staying in the moment, a Navy SEAL for taking action. You know, I'm able to draw out of my experiences with people and make it into a really fun business parable, and the likes of maybe like a Bob Berg Go Giver, you know, or something like that. And then I have a second book, which you're going to be in, as Mike, is that actually you're going to be in a couple quotes that I've mentioned today within my book. I've made some rewrites on that, which is actually pretty cool, and you'll have credit in the book itself. But I also have a book called Regurgitate, and basically, because I really believe that everybody regurgitates other people's stuff. I did 2 of your things today, you know, regurgitated. I believe, you know, Tony Robbins, who I've been blessed to open for speaking, I do know him as a person as well. You know, he regurgitates Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn regurgitates Earl Nightingale, back to Wallace Wattles, all the way back to Seneca, right? Or any of the Stoics. We're all regurgitating things. So I'm taking everybody's podcast interview, and I'm actually writing a 300-word summary on each podcast interview, what I got from it. And to also give more love to my interviewees, I'm putting a QR code in every page for them to scan and go listen or you know, watch the interview that I did with them. So it's, you know, it's always consistently giving back, but also being able to give something away at a speaking event or something like that. Because honestly, I'm losing a ton of, you know, commissions, if you will, at speaking events. I get paid very well to speak, but we have a product budget of $1,500 for books or $500 for books. I'm missing out on that. That's not why I'm writing the book, but it's just, it just kind of parlays onto it. So it's give me a piece of me away that people can take with them. So there's just a couple books in the works, and it's going to be an exciting 2023 for sure.
You expect them both to come out in 2023?
They'll both be 100% out in 2023, because I'm writing the regurgitating volumes where I'm doing 25 podcast interviews at a time, and they'll be in volumes where they're going to come out like that. And then my business parable, that's already, I'm working, it's complete, Mike, but it's working with editors and adding in a few different things and little things to the stories, because the whole book is written around experiences that I've had in South Florida, you know, whether it's Jupiter, Florida, Palm Beach, you know, Palm Beach Gardens, Miami or whatnot. And I have like different places that the character stops, and, you know, I was able to learn how to write scenes that way of, you know, hey, this is a kava bar, and explain what kava is. I'm a huge proponent of kava, the drink kava. So, you know, I educate them as I go along as well. And I'm not doing it to be a bestseller or anything like that. It's kind of like a piece of me that I can leave here and also give away at events I'm blessed to be, you know, commissioned to speak at.
Well, I give you a lot of credit. Those are 2, you know, very divergent books.
Right. One of them wrote itself, Mike. All you have to do for the regurgitate is go back to the show notes and listen to the show.
But
it's already
but you taking a show and putting it down to the 300 words that capture the show and are interesting to somebody else, is it not easy? That's hard.
No, it's not. And I'm doing it a lot more as a way to give back to the people I've interviewed. You know, if I can make
that's a great idea.
Even more,
Yeah.
It's great. And I got, a good friend of mine, Meg Nasero, which is on my list of somebody to introduce you
Oh
to
yeah.
as
No, I
well.
know Meg. I've been on
Yeah.
Meg's show.
Okay. So Meg is a really good friend of mine here in South Florida, and she's been extra freaking mental in introducing me to the right people for my book.
Oh, okay.
And she,
Yeah.
wrote the
Hers
book
is
Butterflies
Bliss.
and Bliss,
Yeah.
and
Right.
each
Yeah.
one of them is a chapter, 300 words, and what she thinks of something. And that's
Yeah.
what really spurred my idea to really say,
Okay.
hey, I can take each interview, put it into like a small little blog post, and give cred back to the people that I've interviewed, a way, whether it's a link in the Kindle or a QR code on the actual printed page where they can go and scan and go. So there'll be volumes of that. I'm not going to give 400 interviews in one book. No, it's just going to be like Tim Ferriss did in Tribe of Mentors, stuff like that. One, price wise ain't going to work for me, and two, I'm able to keep the brand of Time to Shine Today out more on a consistent basis.
The Tribe of Mentors was interesting because he basically gave, subtracted the writing to the people he asked to be in the book. It's kind of like, it was a very unique and brilliant way to do it.
I have an awesome story about Ferriss, man. I went out to visit in 2007 to San Diego. Again, I was stationed there, so I had a lot of friends. I'm like, man, I want to find Tim Ferriss. And Buddy Man's like, I know where he lives. And like, this is right after he wrote the 4-Hour Work Week, right? And
okay, so when he was just getting
kind of getting started, respect the hell out of him. I like pounded on his door, man. He lived on this like little, not shack, but he was on the water on the Pacific Ocean, but it was like this little, room with a bunch of surfboards and Muay Thai stuff. He's a martial artist as well, and all this stuff. And he's like, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "Dude, your book is awesome." And he's like, "Come on in." So I got to hang with Ferriss before he was Ferriss,
No way.
which is cool. So I've seen him at a few events, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm your stalker." He's like, "Fergie, what's up?" So it's kind of a really cool thing, because I just, I believe in, no matter where you're at, getting your asking gear, man. Ask, be curious, bro. And that's what I do. I'm not afraid. I want to make sure I have something for the person now as I get a little older before I do an ask, right? But if I'm stuck and I know that person can help me out, I ask, even if I don't have anything in that moment. It was just a selfish endeavor, really. And it was during my selfish times, because it happened in 2007, that I reached out or just kind of banged on, Tim's door. But and again, selfish, a lot of people misconstrue that too. Selfish is not a bad word. Even if you look in Webster's dictionary, it's just putting yourself first. And that's what I do every single day. I win my morning, move forward so I can serve, smile, serve, help, whatever I can do.
Yeah. There's a great book out there called Ownership. The subtitle is How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck.
Baby. If you're watching.
Well, Fergie, man, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on the show.
A blast, brother.
Anything you want to end with? You want people to get a hold of you somewhere specifically?
Yeah. You know what? If you want to call our team directly, if you know anybody that's in need of help, if you need coaching, go to Mike. Okay. But if there's something that's outside of coaching that maybe we can help you with, 561-440-3830. You can visit us at timetoshinetoday.com and check out our podcast with, timetoshinetoday.com/podcast. We're also on all directories. Make sure you listen to 335 with the awesome Mike Malatesta. And just want to remind people, man, that, don't take life too seriously. We're not making it out alive, man. And lastly is like, whatever you do, do it for the intention and not the attention, man. Get out there and help people.
Fergie, L. Scott Ferguson, thank you so much for being on today.
You bet, brother. Love your guts.